Hello, folks. If we can reconvene, please, that will be fantastic. Did you feel like emulating? Maybe especially when you were down the Hello, folks. Can we reconvene, please? Our candidates are here, which isn't strictly true because I know several of them are. Oh, one. Oh, yeah, now. So yeah, just at the beginning of the hustings, and we'll then you can come back. And then that way you'll be able to depart after that when you're ready. Okay, folks, welcome back to part 2 of this never-ending, this fantastic hustings. You've been great, and the candidates were great. The leadership. I'm hoping that the deputy leadership candidate even to Nix can't be here, and I have a statement to answer any questions. So, Jonathan.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Chilvers. I'm a in the West Midlands, and it's great to be here in this wonderful city of York today, and also to be in the county where so many of you have been such wonderful activists fighting against the KM8 well at Kirby Misterton, and of course in Sheffield on the felling of street trees. And I want to come back to that in a minute. I'm deeply proud of our unique green political philosophy, but we need to do better at getting our message out. Those principles that we have of environmental wisdom, social justice, grassroots democracy, and non-violence make us different to all the other parties, and that certainly includes Labour. And we've got urgent things that we need to say as a party, not least about the climate crisis, but too often we're not being heard. And I think we all feel that frustration sometimes. And that's what needs to change. And that's why I'm standing as deputy leader. So if we want to get our message out, our key leaders, our leadership team have to be elected to public office. Without our key leaders being elected to public office, we too often come across in the media as an unfocused, ineffective pressure group, when actually we're an electoral force. And as an elected county council, I've seen the difference that getting elected makes in terms of that platform and influence that we have in local government, in town halls, and in the media. And so if we want to get that message out, we have to talk about and demonstrate our green principles in ways people understand on the doorstep and in the media. And again, as a councillor, I've had that experience in successfully connecting with voters who wouldn't necessarily see themselves as natural greens without compromising, while staying true to those green values that we're all so passionate about and that brought us into the party in the first place. And that's where I want to come back to the Sheffield Trees, because it's been a fantastic campaign. I just want to reflect just for a moment on why that has worked so well for us as a party. And first of all, it taps into so many of those principles I mentioned at the beginning. Obviously, environmental wisdom. Why are we cutting down something overnight that's there for generations? Grassroots democracy. People on their own street should have a say about what happens. And also non-violence, in the terms of people like Alison putting themselves on their line, the bodies on the line, and also, but now in the way that she's still pushing council and saying, yes, threatening people and going to the High Court is not a way to resolve this. We can disagree, and we can do that in a way that we can move forward and find solutions to these things. So it taps into those things. But also, the thing that makes it really powerful is it connects with people on the doorstep, because they pass those trees every single day. So it's a living embodiment of those green values that we're trying to talk to people about. And also, it works because we have got we've got city councillors there that can have the influence, that can push for the policies. And so, as deputy leader, if I'm elected as deputy leader, I want to say, okay, how can we find more of those campaigns? Because sometimes when the conditions are right, they still don't happen. We've got to have people that are working, like yourselves, working day in, day out to make those happen. We've got to have those elected councillors that are able to take those issues and communicate them to people on the doorstep. So we've got to get that message out. I've had a lot of experience in the media, regularly appearing in kind of local press, on the radio, and most recently on BBC Two's Sunday Politics. So if we want to get that message out, we need to win local and regional elections, because without it, we just won't build that credibility and lasting political base. And I've run successful target to win campaigns across the West Midlands and advised on winning target seats on election and strategy up and down, literature and strategy up and down the country. So, and if elected, I commit to visiting each of the 9 regions and Wales in the first 100 days and knocking on doors and priority wards, listening to people and showing that it can be done. So I'm deeply proud of our green vision, but we need to change the way we do things to get the message out. Thank you.
I'm Amelia Womack, and I'm asking you to re-elect me as your deputy leader. I've been working as deputy leader for the last 4 years and have created strong foundations for us to continue to build this party from. I've seen this party through the Green Surge, through surprisingly 2 general elections, which wasn't what I was expecting when I first got elected, an EU referendum, Welsh Assembly, London Assembly, and council elections that have seen us win increase our number of councillors time and time again. We have a number of challenges coming up as a party, whether that's looking at the EU referendum and how we push to make sure that we protect our workers' rights, environmental protection, human rights, whether that's even issues such as the next council election is going to be the 4-year, the all-out councils such as York will be on that 4-year point just after the surge. And we need to be making sure that we're running a campaign that is based on our experience of the last 4 years since the Green Surge, but making sure that we're campaigning in 2018 related to all of the different influences that we are currently working with. And those are challenges that, with the experience I have, I know that we can embed strategy that supports local councillors and campaigns. Having helped professionalise this party, putting in place the field coordinators, helping put in place campaign school, I know it's possible that we can drive this from the grassroots, enabling all parts of our party to be out there, the campaigners who win on doorsteps, because I know that it's not just the leadership, it's not the leadership that wins campaigns, it's our volunteers, our candidates, our local parties getting out there on doorsteps and getting our clear message across. In my time as deputy leader, I have visited hundreds upon hundreds of local parties. It was hundreds 2 years ago. I've lost count now because I'm assuming you're not committed to the exact number, because I want to lead from amongst you. I see our members, and as my constituent with you, and working at the grassroots is part of the true values that I hold and how I know we operate as a party. We need to be thinking about how we do deliver our 2018 messaging. And for me, actually backing on what Jonathan is part of campaign school, being embedded on how we work with issues in our community and hang those issues, such as the Sheffield trees, on what our policies are. There are opportunities across the country for this, whether it's directly creating national policy and bringing its relevance to the local level on issues around Sheffield trees or fracking, or even things like M4 relief roads in South Wales. There's a lot of opportunity that we can get Greens elected on these issues. We've seen it happen before, we can do it again, but what we need to do is embed skills within our members and within our local parties to ensure we can achieve that. Having worked as deputy leader for 4 years, I have extensive media experience and know well that we can't just expect to be broadcasting our message and expect the media to come to us. We have to work with the media and create those hooks that mean that they do come to us. I've worked with things like going plastic free for a week that got coverage across the Independent, the New Statesman, and even talking about my experience of domestic violence to be able to talk about our policies on women's refuges and ring fencing money to support women in that situation. We need to be quite bold in how we do attract media, and there are all of these different ways of ensured that I have been on the BBC, Channel 4, ITV, Sky News, in The Ecologist, New Statesman, and even as a result of talking about women's rights and talking about issues that are related to diverse audiences, such as young women, have even been in publications like Grazia and Vogue, getting our message out to an audience that simply we've never reached before by being imaginative about how we communicate our policies. We have a lot to do over the next 4 years, and I feel like, sorry, the next 2 years. And I feel like building on these foundations that I've already created, whether that's working with local parties or even working with the campaigning groups that I've been working to bolster our message with. In the EU referendum, I worked to not only set up Greens for a Better Europe, but to bolster our message, co-founded Another Europe is Possible, which is the only left-wing Remain campaign. I also work as co-chair of the People's Assembly to make sure that our policies on austerity, the Greens are at the heart of ensuring that we are associated with the policies of anti-austerity and not just the Labour Party. So for experience that delivers and building on strong foundations of seeing this party professionalise and increase our councillors time and time again, I hope that you re-elect me as your deputy leader. Thank you.
Hello. Testing. It's great to be back at the Tramways Club. I was here, crikey, it must be about 18 months ago. It was the last leg of the first leg of the No Fracking Way. I've walked 30 miles as part of our 120-mile trek between Kirby Misperton and Preston New Road, and it was a great campaign. We got Lancashire and Yorkshire parties to work together to highlight that the threat of fracking was not a parochial issue, that it was not an issue just about NIMBYism, that it was something that united us all across the north. And it was great to be involved in that and to get all those local parties working together. And how I did it, I just simply don't know, but I did. Well, looking at the Green Party is a party of principle, it's a party of protest, and it does these things quite well. But what we've got to become is a party of power. We've got to become a party that is comfortable with power, that is seeking power, and there's a party which is going to have the solutions to problems that we see around us. And too often, those two things we don't have. Now, I've been a councillor for 20 years, and I do resonate very much with a lot of the things that Jonathan said. And you do have a different feel when you're actually elected by people who are not Green Party members. I'm elected by people from the Asian community. I'm elected by people who would not normally vote Green, but somehow over the years, they've started to vote for us at national elections because they're familiar with us, know who we are. And we've had 17 Green wins in a row in the area where I've been elected. And I've been re-elected 6 times now in the area. And of course, that gives you an authenticity about the things you're saying. When you're actually talking about issues which affect people in people's everyday lives, it's not an academic issue. We're taking up these issues as local councillors. We're taking those things on. And so it's not something that we just don't simply understand. So I do recognise that target to win is something that we've got to put more energy and effort into. And that's happening, and it's happening around the country. And we're gradually building up our numbers of councillors. It's good to see Andy Brown here today from Craven, who I helped assist get elected and become our first Craven district councillor. Give him a clap. But if we're going to keep people elected, we've got to give support to our councillors once they're actually in that position. And we're great at getting them in there, but we've got to think more about the services and facilities that we give to them. So we need more mentoring of councillors. We need official mentors to help them. We need to have model motions that we can put to councillors, not just in one part of the country, but right the way around the country. What's the question we should be asking the administrations of our councils at this particular month? What are the things that we ought to be doing? So more structured support for councillors as more of those come from around the country. So we need to do that. So another issue I'd like to raise is the fact that I'm not moving to London. I know some people may be disappointed about that. If I get elected as deputy leader, I'm not moving to London. I'm not saying vote for me because I'm from Yorkshire, though it's a pretty good reason, I know. But when you actually look at the media, a lot of the media, you might not know this, but BBC Breakfast is made in Manchester at Media City. And so I've been on BBC Breakfast a number of times. They've rung me up and said, do you know anything about dog control orders? Yep. When I looked on the internet, I know everything about dog control orders. And so I've been down to, and I've sat on the sofa and talked about dog control orders. I've also done the manifesto launch on BBC Breakfast in 2015 and sat being grilled there. And it is available on YouTube to look at. So it actually helps our reach by having somebody from the north actually in the area. It was part of the leadership team. So that's important. I want to finish by actually talking about climate change. We're not talking about climate change enough. We need to be talking about the solutions. We don't want to be just simply protesting about climate change. I've been involved in global treaties, trying to get global treaties to adopt, giving more power to local authorities. We need a plan to get us from 3% to 10%.
Good morning, my name's Amy. I'm the Green Party Equality spokesperson and I'm going for Deputy Leader. I've based my talk to you this morning about a question I often get from the media, which is, why am I green? I'm green because we believe in change. We don't just want us down. I'm green because we have amazing campaigners such as yourself in every local party up and down for good. Because we tackle pollution and fight climate change, making sure that animals and humanity have a planet to thrive upon together. I'm green because we fight for human rights and social justice, making it clear that refugees are welcome, standing up for women's rights and celebrating the pride of our LGBTIQA+ community. I'm green because we push for a fairer economy where everyone gets a universal basic income, where we end this archaic austerity regime of cuts upon cuts upon cuts, where we celebrate growth, not in big multinational corporations, but in small local businesses, encouraging local trade. I'm green because this party cares, because it's helped me grow. I've represented the party, not just nationally, but on a global level, representing us at the Global Greens Congress in 2017, where I was elected chair of the Global Greens LGBT+ network. We have schemes to help people help their communities, from 30 under 30 to campaign schools. I want to ensure that we support our local parties, such as yourselves, in our amazing local grassroots work. I want to continue our work defending our planet and human rights. I want to grow the visibility of the party in our campaigns and the media. I want to support our training programs to ensure that they're more accessible than ever, so that more Greens have the opportunities to become dedicated campaigners and to get the opportunities that I've had in the party. I may not be an elected councillor, but that doesn't mean I haven't already made change. Locally in Coventry, we've been able to stop several deportations where people would have been sent to countries where they would have faced persecution. We need to ensure that in our messaging, in our leadership, and in other positions within the party, we are open to people from all different backgrounds, which is why it's important we don't restrict them to just councillors only, because it helps go to show people that they can achieve and they can become a driving force in politics, just as all of us up here have done. So if, like me, you believe in these values and you want to see them highlighted in our work up and down the country, then please vote for me as your first preference for deputy leader, because I will be working day after day to support local grassroots campaigns, as well as tackling the big national questions that we're facing. Thank you.
Rashid Nix can't be here, and he sent a statement which I'm going to read. I did try it out, and it did fit under 5 minutes, so if it's a bit too long, then that's the way I read it this time. Hi and greetings. Unfortunately, I cannot be here to answer your questions in person, as I am presenting at a Young Greens conference in Oxford, and I had given my word I would attend several months ago, before elections were announced. I could have broken my commitment to the Young Greens, but that would make me just another political opportunist whose desire to climb the ladder is greater than their commitment to honouring the people they claim to serve. So wish me and the Young Greens well and accept my humble apologies. And a big ups to the organisers of today's hustings. We approve. Okay, the biggest problem in 2018 is the political classes can no longer be trusted to deliver anything except confusion, lies, and empty promises. Just take a look at our world. However, the biggest problem facing the Greens in 2018 is the loss of over 20,000 members since the Green surge of 2015-16. We've lost 1/3 of our membership in 2 years. Think about that while you sit at this hustings event. That's a huge and significant amount. But if you feel that is okay or acceptable, then carry on with business as usual, blissfully existing in an ever-shrinking green bubble. We'll be extinct in a few years anyway. If, however, you feel that we Greens need to urgently address the issue, then we start by doing something different. We take an effective, impactful action. That starts with you, me, all of us. Do the members want a deputy leader who represents the reality of change, or do the members want a deputy who talks about change? Why aren't Greens performing to our true potential? What is stopping us from being a genuine political alternative for people of the country? A party of cliques and factions doesn't work for the people it claims to serve. We have to deliver. The people of this country are not being inspired with new visions that really connect with the masses, which is why political hustlers and charlatans can sprout their hate-filled hot air and quickly shift the country's hostile atmosphere further to the right without fear of accountability. If we do not get a grip on this quickly, our children's futures will suffer. About me, that's Rashid Nix. My background is diverse and varied. I've worked in education with special needs children for almost 20 years, was trained in media, journalism, TV and advertising. I became politically active when my community in Brixton was demolished by our social landlord, who saw our homes as a valuable piece of real estate on which to build luxury flats for rich investors. I got up and got active. The Greens was my choice. But why doesn't our green message connect to working class communities that are being punished across England and Wales for being working class? The green movement is dominated by people from higher up Maslow's pyramid, and often we fail to connect authentically with struggles of people who survive lower down the order. If we cannot serve them, then we have failed. Why doesn't the green message connect to BME communities who traditionally vote Labour or not at all? Is it because we come across as an exclusive, white, middle-class group of people who do not engage well with others outside that bubble? I'm from this group, and there's huge potential for growth. Why aren't Greens connecting with faith groups? Millions of people attend churches, mosques, synagogues, and temples every week. These people will be courted by the political hucksters. But how often do Greens go to these places of worship and deliver a message of hope or environmental and social justice? Has anyone here recognised that the far right are aligning themselves as Christians, taking a cue from the alt-right movement in the US? If we don't challenge this, the right-wing genie will be impossible to put back in the bottle. Older citizens who found solace in Brexit need to be taken on board. We cannot dismiss their genuine concerns, but we have to open their eyes to the possibility of a new way of doing things. Every winter, our elderly are faced with difficult choices over staying warm. As Greens, we should be knocking on doors, assisting in making our homes energy efficient, and being the friendly, effective, caring, get stuff done face of politics. And finally, the young people. If we do not move to inspire our youth to pick up the baton of leadership and service, it's disconcerting to see young activists who want to make a better world flock to Labour. We snooze and we lose. I'm Rashid Nix. Look me up on YouTube, share videos if you like, what you see, and tell your friends it's a new day. Okay, we now move to questions, and I'm giving them 90 seconds so that we can get through a few extra ones. And the first question is, and we'll start the first one from the right. Very briefly, what is your view on Europe, and what should the Green Party's position on membership? What should be the Green Party's position on membership of the EU? And that comes from Dave Taylor from York.
So I campaigned for Remain. I still believe that we need to remain in the European Union. There's no such thing as Lexit, a left-wing exit. We're under a hard right Tory government who will use Brexit to decimate animal welfare, action on climate change and human rights. We need to be opposing this, because if we don't, then every other angle of our work becomes significantly harder. Brexiteers also have to ask themselves what they actually have planned. If it goes wrong and we have to reapply for EU to join again, then we'd also be joining the Euro and other pieces of legislation which previously we've managed to get exemptions to. They risk further integration that they don't want. Surely it's better to continue on the relationship we already have established. It's also to sum up then my opinion, to make it nice and short, there's a sticker here on the back of my tablet. It's in bright yellow and it says, bollocks to Brexit. It's not a done deal.
They're available at the front.
And on my laptop also. Yeah, it's one of these things where in many ways everything is true. I heard Leslie earlier on talking about trade, talking about growth, and talking about the EU and how the EU is a sort of free trade growth. Well, that's true. It's very true, but it's not the whole story. And the reason that the Green Party is wanting us to stay in Europe is because of the other stuff, because of the social justice elements of it, because of the environmental legislation that has positive impacts. And we can see that without those left to the mercies of a Conservative government, then that is not a particularly exciting prospect. Another thing I'd like to draw attention to is the fact that I am going to the climate change talks, and I'm going to hopefully be able to influence the climate change talks because of the UK's membership of the European Union. And if we don't have that membership, the opportunities that we have in that way are going to diminish. And of course, we have the whole impact on young people. So when we look at things like the right to work abroad, the right to live abroad, all those opportunities.
I have like I said briefly, there's so much to say, because I think that it's what we know is that we know more about Europe now than we did the day of the result. The most Googled term the day after the result came out was, what does the European Union do for me? And the fact that even David Davis has changed his mind on some elements of the decisions that he made around Europe means that we should have a choice to change our mind too, as a result of there being more information available and there being more opportunity for people to challenge what's happening. And also the fact that there's a very clear deal on the table. We wouldn't sign a contract without reading the small print first, and that's why I've been working to campaign for a people's vote. This isn't something new. In fact, it's part of policy in other countries. In Australia, for example, they actually had when they had proportional representation, they had a referendum to ask if they wanted proportional representation, and then a second one to ask what type they wanted. There's a precedent here to make sure that we do challenge, we do make sure that we are continuing to fight have the closest relationship to Europe, but as Greens, we must continue to work to protect our environment, to protect workers' rights, to protect human rights, and stop allowing our government and people blaming the failures of Westminster on migrants and on Europe, because there have been so many people failed by government policy. We cannot let them scapegoat, and we cannot let them use migrants as silver bullets to everyone's genuine problems that are linked to austerity and the failure of our own government.
Yeah, I think that we should be campaigning to remain in the European Union, because we just have to cooperate on those huge international challenges that we face. However, I think we've got to get real about this. Most people that voted leave 2 years ago still want to leave today. There's a few that have gone over, and we ignore that at our peril. If we're going to stay in, we need to build a majority to stay in. And the Green Party, to do that, needs to get on the front foot and put forward a programme that addresses head-on the reasons people voted to leave. That means massive infrastructure in skills and jobs, so people aren't stuck in dead-end jobs without progression. It needs massive investment in our health and our schools infrastructure. And yes, it means talking about migration, how people feel about that, and the population increase from old age growth and from migration in this country. We have to have those conversations if we're going to get a majority, so we can square the need for a democratic mandate and to stay in the European Union. I'm proud to have campaigned for a people's vote when I stood as a candidate a year ago in the general election, and we're seeing that once again the Greens were at the forefront of that, and everyone's beginning to catch up. But let's not kid ourselves that we have to still convince and talk to people that voted leave 2 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question's from Andy Brown in Skipton and Craven. Could the candidates tell us what experience they have of winning over new voters who don't normally support us in parliamentary or local elections? We'll start with you, Andrew.
Okay, the ward I represent, its factory settings are Labour, and they haven't voted Labour for 20 years. 22 years. And that is because we engage with people directly. We help people, we make ourselves relevant to people's everyday lives. So the champions of the people for Asian burials against Labour's wanting to increase the burial fees by 100%, it was the Green Party. It was the Green Party who were championing the Muslim community there. Their issues, which help build trust and help build people, build support with people. And target to win is a good way of doing that. A lot of the places where we actually win, if you actually go back to the factory settings for those areas, they're not for the Green Party. We've built that support, and that's all that support is earned. And so that's how we do it. And so we've got to put more and more focus into winning council seats, because that will gain us the parliamentary seats of the future.
I'd echo what Andrew said about Target to Win. It's a key that we build up, and we continually show communities, not just at election time, but all around the year, that Greens are there working hard for their communities. And I think this also benefits us with our spokespeople because it means we have specialists in various policy areas to go and engage with those specific communities as well. In last year's general election, I represented the party at a LGBT hustings, where on the panel you had a member of the House of Lords, a cabinet member and a shadow cabinet member, and then me. And I read to us, so we might as well use our voice. And it's by engaging people and building up that connection that we can build voters green. And it's purely by building those essential relationships.
Yes, in the electoral ward that I've represented now for 5 years, again, it used to be very strong Labour, and to get elected, we worked hard talking to people all year round for 3 or 4 years before I got elected, and I took equal number of votes from previously people voting Labour and previously people voting Conservative. And it's that showing people that it's possible to do change, to see change happen on their doorstep. It's so powerful. If you've helped them get something fixed in their local area, they walk past that every day and they think, yes, I can be engaged and I can change the world around me. And that's so important. That's what that I've done and others in the West Midlands have done over recent years. And I think it's that ability, and it takes practice to reach out and talk to people that aren't naturally green, is why it's so important to have our key leadership as to be elected to public office. And I'd be interested to hear from Amelia why she's chosen not to go down that route and head up a target to win campaign over the last couple of years, because I think it's such a crucial element of our party to be able to have proven that we can do that, and we can reach people that aren't interested in politics normally, and certainly aren't the 0.1% of people that are part of the Green Party.
No.
Sorry, I'm just like saying I've got 90 seconds to my question, but I don't write a reply. So from my experience, I could tell you about the hundreds of people that I've spoken to on the doorstep and encourage them to vote green. Don't have enough time to tell you about my favourite thing, which is converting a UKIP voter, or UKIP voters in general, which I have quite a high success rate and is part of my pride. But also, having been deputy leader for 4 years, what's clear for the work that we do is there are many external factors that increase our vote share and our membership. So working during the Green Surge, it was we needed to operate very rapidly to meet the demands of our party. We had a surge as a result of the Scottish Green Party, the work of the Scottish Greens in the Scottish referendum, and by utilising those aspects, whether that was on social media or bolstering the messages of even going up and supporting the Scottish Greens. On top of that, I worked hand in petitions during the point that we were isolated from the media debates, which helped grow the Green Surge. Now, I can't remember how many members there were when I was first elected in 2014. I think it was 15,000. So the fact that we've increased and bolstered that membership has been vitally important, as well as increasing that vote share. The last general election was our second highest vote share for a general election, and we are retaining that support because we need to be with the opportunities of, because we need to be taking advantage of those opportunities, whether that's on Europe, whether that's on Trump, to increase our membership through our messaging and ensure that we are increasing our votes that way as well. I'm sure I don't have 10 seconds. I think there aren't Welsh Assembly elections till 2021, so if you want to come and help me for those, then that would be wonderful. I ran in the seat with the highest vote share, and I think it's really important that we do achieve our first Welsh Assembly member in Wales, and it would be wonderful to get support from across the country, and obviously specifically the West Midlands, as you're one of our neighbours.
Okay, so the next question, we'll start with Jonathan. What is your impression of our new political strategy, and how do you see it being disseminated throughout the party? And that's from Rosie and Lyle in York.
there's parts of our political strategy that I really like. I think we've got a real opportunity to link those to show that we are a unique green political philosophy, particularly through green economics, because we can talk about the way that economics on a finite planet looks very different to perpetual growth. And we can talk about the fact that green economics is about living within our means on a planet, and that can help us distinguish us from both Labour and the Conservatives, and for that matter, the Lib Dems. So, and I think there's elements of that political strategy in terms of where we position ourselves that I think are really positive and helpful, and can help show that we're a proud Green Party. We're not just a greenwash Labour, but we've got radical and realistic and relevant things to say as a Green Party, and that excites me. In terms of disseminating that out, I think again it comes back to how do we make that real to people in local areas? How do we pick issues that affect people when they walk to school every day? When they go to work, and so it's about how the central party helping the local party embody those green principles and getting that message out.
So in terms of our political strategy, I'm really proud that we are focused on the grassroots, bringing in those field organisers that we simply didn't have 4 years ago, bringing in and making sure that we have clear training on target to win, and basically ensuring that those skills are in our parties with campaign school. As I said before, I think that one of the key things that we need to do to change that is to create a campaign school that is on issue-based campaigning, such as trees in Sheffield, or kind of building developments, new roads, to make sure that our councils have an opportunity to hang our policies off issues that affect people's day-to-day lives. On top of that, I've worked to build our strategy around other areas, communicating issues around climate change with a clear flooding campaign that I've supported, the Environment Agency going to look at the work of some of our councillors. I have a big banner made actually that says "This is climate change" for the next flooding event. Would you believe this winter we had snow and not flooding? And so I'm hoping to get re-elected so I can get my banner out, because I was quite proud of it. But also making sure we make these links in so many different ways. And I think that firstly, making sure we're making those links at the grassroots and at the council level is important. But then when we do this on a national basis, it was clear that our strategy in 2015 to use austerity as a key issue to campaign on was the right one. And I believe that flooding, severe weather events are a good opportunity to make sure that we do make those links to climate change in the future.
Target to Win is clearly the way ahead, and it's how we built our council base from the beginning, and that's gone up in recent years. There's a really important thing here. It's about the culture of the party, and for a while there was a lot of people who did not regard us, our own members, as an electoral party. They regard us as a campaigning party that did a little bit of politics, did a little bit of election work. But that's changed, and that's incredibly positive, and I want to see more of that going on. And you can learn even if you've been a councillor for quite a long time. And I know and I think it's quite important that we continue to refresh our knowledge, and that's one of the important things about campaign school. Yes, it changes the culture, but it's also the old hacks like me who've been around for a while who can still learn new tricks. What we lack is anything on council retention, really. We need more support for people once they're actually getting elected. And I've talked about model motions, I've talked about model questions. I think there's a lot to be done on mentoring. We need to put a lot more meat on the bone here. And it's not simply the role of the Association of Green Councillors, because it doesn't do that role at the moment. We've got to differentiate ourselves from Labour a lot better. We are not the Labour Party. We have 15 seconds. I'll just say NHS Reinstatement Bill, Trident, third runway. You know, we need to be talking about this a heck of a lot more about why we are so much better than the Labour Party and such a better choice than them for anybody who's thinking of getting involved in politics.
I really like our political strategy. It contains some very realistic, achievable goals for us as a party. Important goals like becoming our third party across England and Wales. We're already seeing our vote share increase. We saw more councillors elected in May. We're seeing UKIP fall terribly in the polls, which is obviously giving us a boost. We are on track to achieve our political strategy goals, and we are doing so incredibly well. And this is thanks to our local parties who have already been enacting this strategy. So I'd say it's been disseminated well, and I think our political strategy is doing exceedingly well.
Thank you. I think we'll start with Amelia for this question. What should the Green, and it's from Michael Challoner from Richmond, what should the Green Party do to get more coverage from the national media?
So there are many opportunities that we need to take, and the way that the media works is they remind me a little bit like cats. Like, you can spend lots of time trying to get them to come, and then suddenly they'll pounce on you if they think that they've got something that they want to get out of you. The key thing to do is to be making sure that we are making those real life links of what policy means in people's day-to-day lives. And that's why things like the flooding campaign that I've been working on has actually captured the imaginations of potentially having a BBC show on how flooding, natural flood defence works in communities, because it was a genuine way to make those links between climate change and flooding that you don't often get. And while they want to do things on the environment, what they want is practical stages. Because I think that we've got all kinds of issues that are high on people's perception of what are the upcoming risks in the UK, things like water scarcity being something that even I know that people high up in the government are concerned of as a national risk, and how we actually make those links between things like fracking and other issues in our community to make sure that we are addressing that public perception in a way that, that resonates with communities. But on top of that, I've worked to get local media coverage on a regular basis, having worked on events and had policy launches with our local parties and in our communities that helps amplify your message. And time again, working as deputy leader in your community ensures that local press coverage and ensures that local communication for you.
It's exactly the right question to be asking. I think sometimes we have a tendency to maybe complain that we don't get media coverage, but actually we've got to give them a reason to cover us, when we're not actually making the decisions. So first of all, I think we need to be prepared in terms of building relationships with journalists. I've found over the years, sort of in the local media, that over time I built up relationships, and now on particular issues like homelessness, air quality, and transport, they will come to me for a quote rather than the other way around. But that's years of working with journalists. The second is kind of to be prepared in terms of when particular issues come up. So this week we've had the issue with Burberry burning thousands of pounds worth of clothes, and the BBC went to Greenpeace for a response. Now that should be that should be our natural territory. But we've got to be prepared about that, because these kind of issues around waste are going to come up. We should have 3 points ready based on our policy framework. We should have them ready, so that comes out. We can be contacting those local journalists, those journalists we've got the relationship with, and saying, do you want to comment on this story? Here are our 3 points that we've got ready. And by being prepared, we can make sure we can also keep that democracy in terms of what we say as a party as well.
I think it's really important, in order to be able to grow our messaging, that we work with local parties at that grassroots to provide media training and support to help share our radical messages at all levels of the party, up and down the country. I know in my work as a spokesperson how important it is to engage with our press team in the head office, who are specialists in this area. It's given me the experience of working with the media, as wide-ranging from the BBC to Time magazine, from Russia Today to the Washington Post. it's not just about engaging with places where we think will echo our messages, but going out there, taking on the difficult interviews to help ensure that we spread our message to places that might not have heard it before, because if they hear our message, they're more likely to vote Green.
Okay, being available is always an important thing for the press. If they know they can ring you, if they know you'll be there and you are Mr., Mrs., rent a quote, that they want to have you there to put forward your view. So I've mentioned about BBC Breakfast and the fact that I'm able to get on the train and get pretty much to Salford within about half an hour. That's a benefit. It's something I'm able to do. Well, let's not forget things like local radio and local papers. These are quite powerful and can have quite a big reach. And Radio Leeds is somewhere where I've obviously done things on Radio Leeds and down the line to London as well. So there's a question really about what can the Green Party do about its own spokespeople? Because I don't think we use our spokespeople network enough. I think there's a lot of strengths there in the party that are simply not being used. And we've got a new comms director in post in the Green Party, and there's an opportunity there, I think, to have a fresh look at how we use some of the assets that we actually have within our own party. It's also about thinking about the things which are definitely going to come up each year. We know there are going to be price rises, usually for tickets at the beginning of the year, so be ready for that. But we also need to be able to react to events and be good at getting on the telly and being able to say things there at that point. Okay.
Right, I'm going to take one more question, but I'm only going to allow a yes or a no, followed by one sentence. And that sentence shouldn't be a paragraph because we are pretty much out of time. But the question is, and we may as well start with you, Jonathan, would you support moving the party office out of London? And that's from Claire Nash and Skipton and Craven.
Yes, the north-south divide is a huge issue, and we've got to rebalance our economy away from London, and that means moving key things up north, and why not in Yorkshire?
Yes, but maybe it's more how we have satellite offices around the country, because there'll always be the need to be going to Westminster and being part of that bubble. That's not going to go away by us moving our offices, but maybe we do need to have other offices across the country to have that equal representation of all regions in Wales.
No. But I think it would be important for us to have certain functions of the party that are based here. If we're growing the Association of Green Councillors, perhaps that ought to be based in the north. Perhaps it ought to be based in the north. So also things like publications and possibly a press arm that's actually based around here as well. So I think if we're growing the party, then there would be a need for us to have a northern office, and we've got to actually do what we're about based on need.
Yes, move it to the Midlands so that the whole of the country can get there easily. We see Birmingham has train links all over the country, and also build up more satellite offices so that people can engage directly with the party in their communities.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you very much to the candidates for keeping to time and for answering that last question briefly. That's fantastic. You've had some fairly tough questions. Thank you all for coming here and speaking. Yeah. Okay, I've got three brief announcements. First of all, there will be a collection to try and cover the cost of renting the hall. So if people would like to generously contribute to that as they leave, that would be fantastic. Secondly, candidates can do photos with the deputy leadership candidates before they hair off to get their trains to Manchester, because they do have a bit more time, because I know they're doing the leadership hustings before the deputy leadership hustings. And thirdly, for those of you who are coming campaigning with us in this area this afternoon, we do have some lunch, and there'll be further details for those of you who are staying, but the lunch is around there. And so if you want to come and campaign with us this afternoon, you're more than welcome. And I've been told, finally, do get yourself a mug. Okay, thank you. Thank you for everybody who's been watching the streaming. Thank you for those who submitted questions. We weren't able to take them all. We've taken as many as we could. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much to York Green Party, Tom in particular, for organising this. From the regional point of view, we are going to be having a regional conference in September, probably in Sheffield. So the 8th or 15th, probably just people just pet and so on these talks are interested in regional things as well. So thank you very much to York Green Party.
Thank you for coming.